This is Covering the Spread, part of the FanDuel Podcast Network.
It is officially week 1, and we are back, baby. The first NFL game of the 2023 season is now just 2 days away, which means this is our final time to lock in some futures, lock in some win totals, and get in our bets for that Thursday night game between the Chiefs and the Lions. Here to break that down and talk about the futures market and week 1 in general is Ryan Williams. We'll pick his brain on week 1. His offseason with futures, the things that went well, the things he regrets, stuff like that, kind of go through the whole gambit there and get you ready for our final thoughts on week 1. This is Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor of digital media for FanDuel Research, joined here as mentioned by Ryan Williams. Check him out on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. Ryan, it is week number 1. How you doing today?
Oh, we're good, Jim. It's week 1. We're ready to get our lineups in. We're ready to get the bets paid off to fruition. Hopefully on some futures we got to wait on, as we talked about earlier this summer. But this is what we do it for. This is what we live for. This is, you know, when your takes start to come to fruition, when you start to get sad about missing out on the guy who you've been off on all off season, and it's just so great to have football. I'm excited to be back once again with you, Jim, talking on Covering the Spread, and I'm excited to have the football season kick off here in a couple days, officially.
Yeah, and it'll be twice per week once again for Ryan. Every Monday and Tuesday, we'll be here with Ryan. Monday for a Monday Night Football preview. Tuesdays, taking a look at power rankings, the futures market to get you ready for more of a broad perspective on the NFL, something we didn't do last year, but I feel like it's a good addition because I don't do a lot of futures betting, to be fully honest. So I kind of ignore it once the season begins, but it's still an important part of betting the NFL is keeping an eye on that market, trying to identify inflection points and stuff like that. So wanted to get Ryan in the mix on Tuesdays to bring that perspective because it's not my forte. So that's the reason we have Ryan every Tuesday going forward for this NFL season. We're going to talk about the futures market and talk about that. And we'll also break down the Thursday game between the Lions and the Chiefs, and then talk about some week 1 bets that Ryan likes as well. Now, we're going to dig into all that here in just 1 second. But first, a reminder to make sure you're subscribed to the Covering the Spread podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts, because we have a full slate of shows once again every weekday, and actually twice on a couple of days, because Tom Vecchio is going to be previewing every Thursday night game for us here on the show, a little solo 10-minute show with Tom. We're calling it Primetime Tom, as he gets you ready for Thursday Night Football. That'll be here on the Covering the Spread podcast feed every week. So you can get that here. You can also find that on FanDuel TV, FanDuel TV Plus, and the FanDuel YouTube page, along with all of these shows. So easiest way to get them, make sure you're subscribed to the Covering the Spread podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts for both the Covering the Spread shows and Primetime Tom to get you ready for Thursday night. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use. You can bet on everything from the spreads to player props and more. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777. Or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or in Kansas or Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana. 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghealth.com in Kansas. 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. mdgamblinghealth.org in Maryland. And 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia. Call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. NFL Sunday ticket offer ends 9/18/23. No refunds. Terms and embargoes apply. $100 off NFL Sunday ticket, not YouTube TV. YouTube TV base plan required to watch YouTube TV. Redemption requires a Google account and current form of payment. Commercial use is excluded. Let's talk now about this upcoming NFL season, Ryan. And before we talk about any futures we want to add, I also want to look backwards because I think that we don't have a lot of offseasons in the NFL to learn. And I think that the best way to learn is by looking back at our portfolio, not before we see the results, but when we see the full offseason play out. So I want to talk to you about your futures portfolio heading into 2023. When you're looking at your portfolio right now, Ryan, let's start things off on the positive end. What are the futures you feel best about? And when you made those bets at the time, what led you to place them?
Well, yeah, I was looking back. Shout out to you for this question, Jim, because I really start to look forward and I kind of just let the portfolio sit about it. So I was like, oh, this is a fun question. Let me go back and look. And I remember us talking back in July about the rookie market. And that's always the fun one to have the futures on because things can change so much in the offseason. Like when we were talking, that was before training camp was even officially kicked off, Jim, right? And so people are just still have things in their mind on how they think it should go and how the draft played out. And, oh, this is what makes sense. Albeit like a guy like Quentin Johnson, who people think goes to the not people. I thought, he goes to the Chargers. He's in that new offense with Kellen Moore. Like he's going to be the guy. Lo and behold, like Josh Palmer's the wide receiver 3, and that's how things play out. If you remember, we talked about Zay Flowers, Jim, and taking him at 10-1 to lead all rookie receivers. And it kind of felt like, who's this Zay Flowers or, the Ravens offense and, what's going to happen with the new offensive coordinator. And now that's all people can talk about, right? Like Lamar's back healthy and you got Andrews who's been banged up, but he looks healthy. Rashad Bateman's back. And then there's this kid, Zay Flowers, who everybody falls in love with. And the Todd Monken offense can lead to more passing. And now Zay Flowers is plus 350 to lead rookies and receiving. So to look at that value that you were able to get that early on in the summer is just something that, is just so, and that's why you lock your money on some future.
Yeah, the Zay Flowers one, as you mentioned, plus 350 to lead all rookies in receiving yards for this year. And I think that's a combination of things. It's a bet on talent with Zay Flowers. I think that he showed at BC. He was a very talented guy. You're betting on a former MVP in Lamar Jackson. I think that that's always a positive. Todd Monken, right. It seems like he's going to run up tempo, potentially be a bit more pass heavy too. And all those things kind of add to making Zay Flowers intriguing. Now, got a lot of closing on value on the Zay Flowers one from 10-1 to plus 350. And I feel like, Ryan, anytime you can get that kind of movement on a bet, I don't think I'd take it at plus 350 now, but like 10-1, you offer me that right now, I'm taking that in a heartbeat. So anytime you can get that kind of movement, regardless of results, I feel like you have to go into this year thinking that was a good bet.
Oh, absolutely. That's what it's all about, is just getting value. Like, people, you have to, when you're starting to bet, and especially in the futures market, like you have to get narratives. You have to get, oh, this team is such and such. That all has to go to the wayside, because all we're looking at is just if things go right for me in every capacity, like what kind of value am I getting? And like, what's going to make a difference? Is this player going to move up at any point in time, or team, or what have you? And if that answer, if you can come up with a scenario in your head where, I could actually see this playing out and getting worse odds later on in the season, that's a bet that you have to be willing to take. Not maybe, we talk about units all the time, and maybe it's not a full unit, but you take a half unit or a quarter unit, you put it on there and you let it ride, and the payouts can be great at the end of the year. And long teams haven't gone your way, and you have something coming back to you.
And I think the other thing too to think about is asking yourself that exact question of, do I think these odds will shorten at any point, is important for the flip side too. When you're talking about a bet that you want to make, if you can't say to yourself, okay, do I think that Zay Flowers will shorten before week 1 in this market? If your answer was no at the time, it makes sense to save your bankroll and hold off and bet that one before week 1. With Zay Flowers, obviously the answer was yes, so that didn't apply. But it's important to ask that question, and it can work both ways. there are NASCAR drivers who I can ask myself, will this person move before Friday, before I get more information? If the answer is no, I'm probably not going to bet them at that point. I'll bet them later on as I get more information, and hoping that they're not going to slide off, especially if it's a thin value and stuff like that. So kind of predicting where the market will go is always going to be a key. Now, the Zay Flowers one is a good side, but Ryan, we all make futures bets that we regret. Maybe it's not a dead bet yet, but it's probably one that you're, not feeling so good about. So when you look back at your futures portfolio, what's the flip side here? Which ones do you wish you could have back? And what do you think, what led to you placing that bet in the first place?
Hard to think of ones that are rough already at the start of futures, but there definitely is one, Jim, and it's the Rams to win the NFC West. I got them at 10-1 as well.
Oh, that's a fine number.
That also, and it just looks bleak in LA right now for this team. Cooper Kupp is dealing with yet another hamstring injury on top of everything else that he's dealing with. They're talking about that we've never seen this type of injury before, so to speak. Aaron Donald has been talked about being on the trade block, like no idea what Matthew Stafford offers. And, for me, what kind of excited me was like, okay, so nobody's on this team and we know, who they are, and they just are coming off of a Super Bowl win 2 years ago. Sean McVay was talked about not coming back to this team, and he's back. So I thought there was some excitement to be had there. And at 10-1, what's that? You talk about taking shots on bets, and I was like, that's great. But now at this time, it just feels like they are so far down. Shout out to the Arizona Cardinals, who are in that division, who will keep them from probably being in last place. But it just seems like, the other two teams in the division are the ones that are, going to carry the water to the end, and leave the Rams hanging out behind.
I don't think 10-1's a bad bet, to be fully honest. I can understand why you'd regret it because of the Cooper Kupp stuff, because he matters a lot to that team. So I can understand regretting it, but I wouldn't say it's a bad bet at 10-1 given the information you had at the time. Now, obviously the Cooper Kupp thing, it's part of the Rams is that their team is pretty fragile. They don't have a lot of depth with regards, especially on defense. If Donald is out, they're toast. But 10-1's not a bad number. So I think that's actually a pretty defensible one. I would actually say though, if you were asking me, Ryan, Jim, are there any week 1 bets you regret? I have the Rams plus 5.5 against Seattle. And even when I rule out Cooper Kupp from my model, I do still show value in that. I've got it at 3.5. It was, I think, 2.6 or something like that. I don't know. I don't honestly remember what it was before, but it was more than 3.5. So I still have it as a slight value, but just bad vibes to bet on a team and immediately have their second best offensive player have some freak hamstring injury that, just sounds hideous across the board. Seeing specialists up in the great state of Minnesota. So that ain't great. So we both have regrets around the Rams, even though, your number has not moved against you. My number has not moved against me yet. The money line has moved, but not the 5.5. So I feel like the Rams are just kind of a full regret team at this point.
Definitely. I would also say,
right.
Jim, CJ Stroud. Yeah, CJ at 850. Who's now at 950. So, that doesn't feel great when you kind of see how things play out and moving in the opposite direction on where you got somebody at. But yeah, those are, it's tough to say that there are regrets at this point in time, like you're saying, because they're still yet to be played out. But anytime the number moves against you or just things are stacked up against you from news cycle, if one of these guys gets traded for the Rams, just knowing that that's a possibility, that's what makes having any can already start to see fruition before the games have even started.
Well, I have probably gonna be stacking that Ravens Texans game in week 1, so I'm hoping CJ Stroud furthers that rookie of the year campaign in week number 1 against Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. All right, let's shift our focus now and talk about some power rankings entering the 2023 season and talk about the Super Bowl market, because right now the Chiefs are the favorites. They're 6-1. Got the Eagles, Bills, and Bengals all 10-1 or shorter. So Ryan, if I say to you now, Ryan, I am giving you, let's say I'm giving you $10 just for funsies, because I don't want to waste more than $10. I'm giving you $10 right now, and you have to bet a future on the Super Bowl for 2023. Where are you going? What's the best value on the board in your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, the teams at the top are the teams at the top for a reason, Jim. And
Mhm.
I think for me, like the NFC, until I see otherwise, it goes through Philly and San Fran. So I think, that's what really drives the boat home there. I'm not going to put money on anybody else outside of those. You get to the AFC, Jim, like these three teams at the top have kind of all been in the mix. And I know the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Like they've been the dynasty team, but they've had a scare with Buffalo. They had a scare with Cincinnati last year. And when you're talking about Cincinnati being 10-1 and this team having played in the Super Bowl again 2 years ago, disappointing loss there. But, last year in Arrowhead, like they're pretty much a late hit away from going back again. Like that's how this team is. And I feel like every year that in Joe Burrow's progression, he kind of comes up to Buffalo, going against KC, and this team can show out. Talking about getting the offensive weapons healthy, that offensive line showing up. We know that defense is like Joe Burrow being the third quarterback. And I get it, he's dealing with injury too, so that might make people feel a little bit weary. But we saw what he did coming off ACL, and this dude is just a dog. Not to take words out of Dion's mouth, as he's been all over the TVs and stuff recently. But like this Cincinnati Bengals team, I feel like is just so undervalued, just across the board, that I feel like if you gave me that $10, I'm putting it on Bengals and letting it ride.
Yeah, 10-1 for the Bengals. That's kind of been the team that I've been most focused on throughout this offseason. And I think that they have that upside. And if you're talking about Super Bowl futures, you need upside because you got to go through that gauntlet of the NFC, the AFC, and beating Josh Allen in one game is one thing, but beating Josh Allen, beating Patrick Mahomes, and then maybe Jalen Hurts, maybe Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers,
Right.
You have to string together multiple victories, and that requires a lot of upside. And the Bengals are a team that has that. So I agree with you. I think that like they're probably the best non-Chiefs future. I honestly think there might be value in the Chiefs at 6-1, because I think that their odds of winning the Super Bowl are probably higher than 14%. So honestly, I feel like it's those two teams. To me, if I'm looking beyond, for a long shot, I can't really talk myself into anyone. I could hear a case of the Ravens real fast. You could definitely, you could sell me on that being a possibility, but anything else to me is just kind of, I can't get there. So to me, if I'm betting Super Bowl futures right now, it's either the Chiefs or the Bengals. Chiefs 6-1, Bengals 10-1. It's chalk, but sometimes, like you said, Ryan, chalk is chalk for a reason. And that's kind of what I see with regards to the top end of the board for there. Any final win totals you want to lock in, Ryan, before we get to week number 1 now?
Well, I think just on the same vein there, if we're thinking about the Bengals and being, the top upper echelon of the AFC, if you look at their win total right now, I believe it's still at 11.5 on the FanDuel Sportsbook, and you're getting plus money on that. So for them to win 12 games, go 12-5 in the season, you're getting plus 118 on that. That kind of feels good. It is going to be kind of a gauntlet there in the AFC North. We've talked about that, all off season as well. But, if the Bengals are who we think they are, Jim, then, get on this number, probably going to, for home field advantage because of who those other see. So this is a number that I know they're going to be gunning for, and that's what makes me feel good about getting plus money on them.
Yeah, over 11.5 is plus 118 for the Bengals at FanDuel Sportsbook, and I think that's a great number. You mentioned the division. I think that's actually where my favorite one is here in the AFC right now is the Browns. Over 9.5 is plus 108, and I know there's been bad vibes around Deshaun Watson during camp. Justifiably, it sounds like it's been pretty rough, but we've seen this offense work with Baker Mayfield. We've seen it work with, to a certain extent, Jacoby Brissett last year played very well in the system. I feel like eventually they will figure things out. So it is tough to be on two teams in the same division. I think everyone has Pittsburgh as their sleeper team this year, it seems like, but my numbers like them too. So I don't think that's totally unfounded. You got Baltimore there. It's a very tough schedule. I believe I've got Cleveland around 10.1 wins over 9.5 plus 108, probably about right. So I don't think there's a ton of value in the futures market right now, but I think this division's really tough. It's rock solid top to bottom. And that means that the Bengals do make it out of, win the AFC North. That will show. I think that's going to be a demonstration of that upside we were talking about before, as far as what they can do. entering the year. Let's shift focus now, Ryan, and talk about some Thursday night football. We've got the Lions taking on the Chiefs at Arrowhead to open up this year. Right now, the Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites at FanDuel Sportsbook. Total in this game is 54.5. So, Ryan, any thoughts for you on Thursday night between the Chiefs and the Lions to kick off the year?
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one, Jim. What to kick off the year? That I think the NFL did a great job with scheduling this year, but that's for another day. This really comes down to Chris Jones for me. Is he suiting up for the Chiefs or is he not? Talk about it a lot. The Chiefs with a touchdown number or higher to cover seem to kind of struggle with that. Outside of when it comes to home openers, I should say season openers. Home openers as well goes into that bucket, but season openers, guy's been incredible. 18 touchdowns, no interceptions. Doesn't matter if they're on home or on the road, undefeated in the season opener. We know what it's going to mean. And I really think that, the Chiefs kind of talk this way, but even watching quarterback, you can see Patrick Mahomes got a little fire in them, and everybody's talking about how good the Lions are going to be this year and how they can, actually go into Arrowhead and beat this team who are coming off of a, Super Bowl high. I think they want to come out here and really take it to this team and kind of show that there's still, that they got a long ways to go. And the number at 6.5, it's still, makes me not feel comfortable in that. But I do think it's interesting at this total here, which has been getting bet up, where you're looking at 54.5. These two teams, or I shouldn't say these two teams, Jared Goff has only played against Kansas City once in his career. That was a win in November back in 2018. And that game winded in 5 points. Now, granted, that was inside, and we know with Jared Goff, he to play indoors, not outside, but this is a September weather game in Kansas City. It should be good weather out there. And so if the Lions are who we think they are, and they get down big, I feel like they have pieces in David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon St. Brown to, kind of catch up and maybe make some scores late in that second half. So I do like the over still, even with that being at 54.5, even with it being a Thursday night game, Jared Goff on the road. I think that's still probably where I end up leading my bet. I still might take the Kansas City spread at 6.5, because I do think that if Chris Jones gets in, and we probably could get to that number of 7. So still getting it at 6.5 feels good at -115, but I think that over at -105, if it is definitely somewhere I want to go.
Okay, so over 54.5, -105, where Ryan is going there. Now, Ryan, you know this, and I think most of the listeners know this, but I have an unhealthy Jared Goff obsession. And so that led to my betting the Lions a lot last year, and it was good. It was very successful doing so, but my numbers are high in the Lions. I still have the spread as being almost exactly spot on. My numbers have the Chiefs there by 6.49 points. The spread is 6.5 right now. My alternate model, which didn't perform as well last year, but I'm still running because I think it has a better, I believe more in the thesis of this model than the other one. So I do still run it. Alternate model has the Chiefs favored by 7.7. So both of them say it's either an efficient spread or potentially more so favoring Kansas City. And again, that's despite the fact I have an unhealthy obsession with Jared Goff. So that probably tells you how good how well the Chiefs grade out in my model. That game you were referencing, the Chiefs and the Rams back in the day, that was at the Coliseum. I remember that game was so much fun. And I think that game is to blame for my Jared Goff obsession and why I was too clinging to my priors on that one, because he played so well. That game and the Vikings game, there was a Vikings game. I think it was either that year or the year before, Thursday night, I believe. And he just shredded in both those. So I'm going to blame those games for my bad takes around Jared Goff. Hopefully those bad takes look less bad this year than they had in years past.
You should.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, anything else for week 1 before we close up shop for today?
Yeah, I would say just going back to I'll be talking about this a lot, but we will know listening to me for covering the spread for the past half. I love getting Kelsey bets whenever I can, and definitely whenever they're plus money. And Kelsey to score a touchdown in the first half of the game is plus 130 on the FanDuel Sportsbook. And when you're looking at Kelsey's first half numbers, as I did, I'm doing the research. So in 36 games since 2018, Kelce has scored in the first half 27 times. Last year, with no Tyreek Hill being involved, he scored in the first half in 6 out of 7 games where he had a touchdown. And that's just one, not to mention the games where he scored twice. We know that Mahomes likes to get things going early, and when they get in the red zone, like, we know that this guy's a threat. Like, Kadarius Toney's banged up, like Justin Ross, Rashee Rice, like all these other guys, like Patrick Mahomes is going to rely on Travis Kelce a lot. And I feel like just getting plus money when you can on Travis Kelce to score a touchdown, regardless of where it comes, it always feels like it could be a surefire bet. So I'm definitely going to be taking some chances on that one to have some fun on the Thursday night game. Other bets in week one, Jim, I see you chomping at the bit, but yeah, other bets was just the one that I wanted to talk about. You are talking about the Steelers kind of being favored or favored by the masses, is Steelers plus 2.5 here. I think the holdout that has not been discussed enough is Nick Bosa holding out for the 49ers team. Now, there's a lot of time for that to come to fruition before their game starts, but it doesn't seem good, at least from all intents and purposes. The quarterback situation there is still a little bit muddied on who's healthy and who's not is in Pittsburgh. So to get points there, if you were betting earlier that it was plus 3, and now we've got the hook that has not gone in our favor, but I still like the Steelers plus 2.5 here as the 49ers kind of get their feet under them.
Yeah, I still show value in that right now. I have the Steelers as 1.5 or 1.1 point underdogs, so still some value in that at 2.5. I did get it at 3. That was minus 115. The 2.5 is now minus 110. So I think that the 3, if you can still, I don't think there are any 3s left, unfortunately, but even at 2.5, I do still think the Steelers a bit undervalued there. And I feel good, Ryan, that we're on the same page entering week 1 with beyond the Steelers against that 49ers team.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, we're going to say goodbye to Ryan for today, because I'm going to recap last week's recommendations here from the show. But Ryan, it is an absolute pleasure to have you back on board with us once again for this year. Enjoy week number 1. Have a lot of fun watching it. And I'm looking forward to talking to you once again on Monday to preview Aaron Rodgers' debut with the New York Jets. And I'm sure that you, as a Bears fan, will be delighted to talk about Aaron Rodgers not facing your team. Ryan, enjoy week 1. We'll talk to you once again next week.
Thanks for having me, Jim. Talk to you next time. Jared Goff Truther.
Let's go. Let's ride, baby. All righty. Check out Ryan on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. And like I said, he'll be with us here twice per week, every Monday and Tuesday throughout this NFL season. Let's go back now and recap recommendations here from last week on the show, beginning with some college football. We had Dr. Ed Feng on to preview week number 1 across college football. You can find Ed on Twitter at The Power Rank and find his work and his numbers at thepowerrank.com. 1-1 for Ed on the week in college football. The first one was Hawaii plus 3.5 at home, taking on Stanford, and Stanford won that game 37-24. So Ed, a Stanford alum, got his PhD from there, but we'll hopefully have some consolation with them beating Hawaii by 13 points. So no cover for Hawaii there. But did get the UNC bet. He had UNC minus 2.5 taking on South Carolina. Decently close game to start, but UNC pulled away over the final few quarters of that game, and they won that one 31-17. So a cover for UNC. 1-1 for Ed there. He went 1-0 last week, so 2-1 so far for Ed on the season. We had Austin Cass on to talk about some EPL. Once again, find Austin on Twitter at Austin Cass. Check out his work over at FanDuel Research. 1-1 for Austin as well. The one loss was Everton at plus 145 in the money line. They did shorten to plus 135 before kickoff, so some good CLV for Austin there, but they finished with a 2-2 draw, I believe, against Sheffield there. So no win on the money line for Everton as they did draw in that one. But Arsenal was the other one. They were minus 130 at the time. I believe they closed at minus 140. So again, some good CLV for Austin there. And Arsenal was tied in the 90th minutes. They went to stoppage time. I believe it was a 1-1 game. And Arsenal scored twice in stoppage time to win that game 3-1. So they did cash the money line at minus 130. So good call by Austin on that Arsenal money line. For racing for me last week, only one Formula One bet. That was Carlos Sainz to finish inside the top 6 at -110. Took that at +115 earlier on in the week over at FanDuel Research. And the thought process was Sainz had showed decent speed. It was a track that should suit Ferrari pretty well, and was hoping that that would actually manifest into good results. And with Ferrari, it's never a guaranteed thing. And I said, there's value on Sainz to finish in the podium, but I am a coward and took the top 6. Actually, it was even money for Sainz to finish top 6 at that time. And I was a coward, took the top 6, and I should have taken the podium because Sainz won the pole on Saturday, ran well the entire race, did not have anywhere near the same speed as the Red Bulls. I think Charles Leclerc, his teammate, might have been a bit faster as well, but Sainz held off Checo Perez for a long time, eventually let him by, and then was able to hold off Leclerc for the final 3 laps as well. He finished on the podium, did not do that myself. So, whoops, my bad. Hopefully you were a bit more courageous than I was to take the podium, but we did cash the top 6 bet on Sainz. So back-to-back races, cashing Sainz top 6. Feel good about that. Feel good about the model in Formula One being in the best place it's been, I think, in quite some time. And we'll get back to that for, I believe, Singapore in now 2 weeks. On the NASCAR side of things, it was a lot of close calls, but no cigars. The outright I had was Tyler Reddick at 13-1. Reddick and the Toyota is very fast during qualifying. I believe they swept the top 3 spots. And Reddick had a good race, did not have the best car that belonged to his team owner, Denny Hamlin. Hamlin probably should have won that race, had a loose wheel on pit road, though, and finished poorly, which opened the door for Reddick. And Reddick was leading entering the final round of pit stops. And Kevin Harvick is chasing him down. Harvick goes to pit, and a caution comes out. And Harvick gets a penalty, which should have helped Reddick, but Reddick had also dipped down in order to try to cut off Harvick, lost the lead after those final pit stops and could not regain it as Kyle Larson went on to win. Reddick seemed like he was playing things a bit conservatively because he knew he was in for a good points day, so maybe he didn't go for the win as hard as he could have, but I understand what he was doing. So finished second there. Doesn't matter for our outright at 13-1, but I feel like the model was on the right page in being on Reddick at that number. 2 top 10s for Eric Almirola, plus 750, Alex Bowman, plus 190, or plus 160, I think it was plus 160. Yeah, plus 190 for Bowman to finish inside the top 10. Almirola qualified inside the top 10, had a pretty good car there and ran around the top 10 for most of the night, but did not finish there. He finished 14th. He closed at, I believe, 650 or so, but couldn't quite get the job done. Finished 14th, so no cash there. Bowman was pretty terrible on Saturday, honestly. No speed in practice, no speed in qualifying. Started towards the back, so his odds actually did lengthen to plus 350, which means didn't get the best number we could have gotten on Bowman. But he was running well. He was inside the top 5, inside the top 6 at points during that race, but got caught up in a wreck with Daniel Suarez. Did not finish and finished 33rd. So both Almirola and Bowman had a shot to cash top 10s, did not do so. Reddick had a shot to win the outright, did not do so. So we'll go with just the Sainz bet as far as a winner for this week in racing. Kind of a bummer to be that close, but I do feel like it's validation the model was at least on the right page to have those guys running where they were before they had their respective issues. That is all that we have here for today on Covering the Spread. We are back once again tomorrow afternoon. We're going to talk about week 2 in college football with Dr. Ed Fang, get his read on a couple of teams that have had their numbers move in his model pretty significantly. We're probably talking some Colorado in there with Ed. We'll get you set for week number 2 as well. We'll talk to Ed on Thursday to preview week 1 in the NFL, our full preview of the slate. JJ Zacharyson and Pitching Ninja with us on Friday. So a fantastic slate of guests on tap for this week and every week on Covering the Spread. Big thank you to our first guest in that stellar lineup, Ryan Williams. Check him out on Twitter at RyanAlexander_W. And you can find myself on Twitter at Jim Sannes, JIMSANNES. Don't forget to follow FanDuel Research at FanDuel Research and check out the Covering the Spread podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. We'll talk to you all once again tomorrow to break down some college football. This has been Covering the Spread right here on the FanDuel Podcast Network.